Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportsshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Matt is back from his sunny holiday, so I thought I'd make him just do the pod with Hobbs on his own this week, just to make up for lost time. But no, obviously, as you can see from the title, Hobbs Kessler this week's a great guest. Unfortunately, I couldn't jump on the call, but yeah, brilliant to hear from him, mate, wasn't it? Do you want to talk a bit about Hobbs, and then we'll obviously get into some previews or reviews? Sorry,
man. We went back to the roots a little bit on this one because I feel like as much as we've seen or people will know who Hobbs is, I think really wanted to break down his storyline because it's quite sickening, really. He's still only 23 years of age. And, you know, obviously high school phenom. And I just think he's very unique in the sense that he was hyped so much in high school, and not just by media, but also, you know, he was training with people like Nick Willis, and they were coming out and saying like, this guy's going to be great. I think that's a lot of pressure for someone to deal with at that age. And obviously he signed a big money contract as well with Adidas at sort of 18 years of age, and had the NAU thing. So it's a very unique storyline, and I think the only person who could probably relate to it is kind of Jakob. But I think it's probably harder for an American kid, to be honest with you, because there's almost more eyes on you. That might be disrespecting Jakob, but yeah, and obviously he's one of the biggest things as well. He's very unique in the way he trains, and he's had a couple not off years, but a couple flat years after signing pro and figuring out what works for him. And I think real interesting story. He basically went to a lot of coaches and physiologists and people in the sport, and basically, you know, him running his coach and his group wanted to just inquire and learn loads of different ways of training, and then they took all the best bits and they formulated like what he does now, which is a very, very polarized training method, to be honest with you, is how he described it. So I'll let him talk about that. But there was a lot of big takeaways, and to be honest, it was one of my favorite podcasts that we've done in a while, man. Just because of his story and how happy he was to actually go into a lot of detail about his training, his career, and his life so far.
Because I wasn't there, mate. You could just ask all the questions you wanted. But look, guys, that's to come. But obviously, yeah, Matt back this week so we can get our teeth stuck into some of these races we've had. Because, mate, it's been 2 weeks since we spoke about races. And so there's just been absolute heaps of stuff. So, look, apologies, heads up to anyone. Like, I know some of you lot like getting on our backs if we miss something, but there's been a lot going on, so apologies if we do miss anything. Obviously, we're talking about the ones that I guess are fresh in our minds and we think are interesting as well. So, mate, should we start with where do you want to start, mate? Great North Run?
Yeah, let's start there. But I think a lot of the races that have happened over the last few weeks have been like these low-key European track races. You know, like it was meet in Zagreb not too long ago, and that was good racing and fast times. Obviously, there's been a couple of Diamond Leagues in the midst of it as well. But yeah, it's been, and our results roundup, we try to recap that and show, you know, where the Brits have been in these kind of low-key European meetings, world tours and whatnot. So, yeah, Great North Run. I mean, biggest takeaway, obviously Eilish, pretty good double, you know, 2 weekends in a row for her. I think that situation she was in with that leading group, I was never backing her to do anything in that group for a large part of the race. It looked like she was kind of hanging on. Then towards the end, they just started to, like, I guess, compose themselves, set themselves for the kick, and she started to look a little bit more comfortable. But then, yeah, you knew when the sprint was going to come, she was going to struggle. Mind you, she did get messed around. I know it's her, like, she was just seemed to be running in a straight line, and these, you know, the women in front of her just darting all over the place, chopping up her stride. So I would have been a little bit pissed if I was her, to be honest with you, because I think they were getting mixed up, which lane had to go in. Anyway, strong run for Eilish. I mean, that's kind of it on the women's side. It was a good race, a good sprint, but I guess takeaways for us is time to talk about Mark Scott, because a lonely 61.11 in poor conditions on I know Great North Run is technically like a net downhill, right? You can't, it doesn't count towards your PBs, but it's a hilly, demanding course. I know some people can run fast there, but I don't think it's that quick. Course record suggests it's not crazy quick either. And so 61:11 from Mark was pretty good, doubling back after that 5K as well.
Well, I think that's it. I think it's doubling back after the 5K. Obviously, look, we know his heritage in the 5K, but perhaps we didn't know that he still kind of maybe had it, or was he going to have both, if that makes sense. So I think that was really promising. And I guess similar to Eilish, like if you think Mark Scott and Eilish McColgan, they're two of our best distance runners on the men's and women's side. So it's just great to see both of them back competing, and not just competing, but competing at a top level as well. Like the Grey North Run is a top level race.
It is. I think something with Mark that I think is worth noting. Obviously, he's had the baby, so he had a busy kind of early part of the summer and stuff. But he certainly does seem to be kind of gradually just getting back to his best. And I think, me and Chris Jones quite well, and his style of coaching, it takes a while for that to embed. Like he is very number driven. He's very keen on kind of like running to those specific intensities. And I definitely know when Mark was first kind of training for London and the marathon, I think Chris had kind of looked at his numbers, and his tempo and stuff was, I think, probably a little bit slower than what you'd expect from those sorts of zones from an elite distance runner. And I think that's just because of years of kind of like 5K training. But I think he's starting to trend in the right direction now.
Oh, absolutely. And Chris's training is also all about lots and lots of base building. And there's no shortcuts to that. Like you have to do it over not just months, but years. And obviously, look, we're not saying Mark hasn't been running high mileage.
There's been a period where he hadn't though. He
Yeah.
was inconsistent for 12 to 18 months. So I think he'd had to get that base back in him.
Yeah. So look, I'm excited to see how he does over not just next year, but the year after. The guy's still got plenty of years left when it comes to transitioning to the roads. So yeah, super excited to see how he does. Obviously, still waiting for that Eilish McColgan marathon at some point as well. So
there we go. I think if Mark, it's National Cross, which we won't talk too much about because it'll be done and dusted by the time you guys listen to this. But I think if Mark does the National Cross and Emil doesn't turn up, I think Mark wins it again. And I just think he's now on a roll. He's gaining confidence. He's going to do Valencia half as well. I wouldn't mind betting that we see him do European Cross. We see him do Liverpool. We see him do European Cross. And he might be thinking if he can run close to 60 minutes in a half, you're definitely going to shout at winning Euro Cross. With the kind of guys who turn up there, they're all kind of in that range, aren't they? 60-minute half marathon runners, basically there or thereabouts. And obviously Emil the same. I wonder if we'll see Emil follow a similar pattern after the marathon. Surely he won't be rushing to get back into another marathon build, before the year's out. So I think this is going to be, I'm hoping that this year, that British senior men's team at Eurocross is just, all the big guns, all the big dogs.
I hope so. You think, right, post Olympics, you've got an opportunity to go and do it. This is the time to go and do it. And look, no disrespect to any of the guys last year, but it was a weak men's team for Eurocross. And look, all the funding problems they have with teams, the more they send teams that then don't go and bring back the goods, the more funding problems or issues they're going to have, and the more reason they're going to have to stop funding or making people self-fund. Whereas actually, for the big boys show up and go to Eurocross, bring home the team gold, get one person on the podium, for example, a few in the top 10, it's only good for the sport.
Yeah. I think we could see that. So fingers crossed. And then obviously on the Friday night, we'll just kind of briefly mention it. The 5K, it was a good race with Mark and Scott, and Mark out kicking him. And I still think that course is just terrible that they run it on. And I think the men's race had a decent turnout, to be fair, so shout out to the top three, Mark, Scott, and Alfie Manthorpe. Jack Kavanagh in fourth as well. But the women's race, man, it's just not a good advert, is it? Like, 4 people doing it. Callie Thackeray, I heard rumors they basically had to get Callie Thackeray in last minute Obviously, she wasn't down to run. They had to sort of say, like, can you please come and race it for us? Gun to take victory for her. So, I mean, you were saying though, like, is there any need to put that? Why do they put that 5K there? Like, there's so many 5Ks that they could have just piggybacked off. And I'm not just saying this because we have close links with like podium stuff, but the podium 5K literally a couple weeks before in Cardiff, the home nations. You had great lineups. The time of year again was very similar, end of August. That was one in
Course is
13.
fabulous as well.
Well, course is better,
No,
I
yeah,
think,
no,
way better than those bridges and bollards and stuff that they have to negotiate. So I was just like, why? I don't understand why they have feel the need to kind of put an event on this Friday night at 5 o'clock on a Friday. We always make that discussion. People are having to take it. Basically, everyone in the race, bar the top three, have to take it off work. Hence why in the women's race you probably only had 4 people turn up, and obviously it's in the Northeast as well, which is difficult to get to. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot more races that they could piggyback off, and even coming into New Year in March February time, can they piggyback off a 5K there if they want this road 5K champs? And obviously, again, it was super late notice that they were even doing
I
it.
think
So
that's it.
all in
Like
all, it
if
just
you're going to do it
shows.
late notice, I think you add it to something. If you're going to make a real event of it, you've got to tell people early, and then they can sort out if they need to book work off, sort out their travel, whatever it is. But I think, yeah, it's just not fair on the athletes. Like they need to know, they need to plan a season. Like, I'm not being funny. Like it shouldn't be a British title should be something that athletes are having to plan for, like from the start of their season, not something they're just like, oh yeah, I'll just go win a British title.
Mm.
But like the way you kind of organize that race, you make it so that that's possible because no one knows about it.
Yeah, literally, and you can't build any hype about who's doing it or anything. I mean, entries were so hard to get hold of. I only found out through one of my athletes that was racing the actual entries sort of 2 days before as well. I think we pushed them up as stories, but they don't even publicize that. So yeah, all in all, I mean that I thought it was a bit of a shambles, and
Mhm.
there were lucky people in the men's race like Mark Scott and Scott Beattie like wanted to run and do it, and I think maybe if Mark hadn't been there doing the Great North Run anyway, would he have done it? So there you go. But it was a strong race in the men's race. But yeah, so that was obviously last weekend. Obviously, we had the Zurich Diamond League and some good races, but again, just a little bit. I'm intrigued. I mean, we'll just move forward to Brussels, today and tonight and Saturday night. And I think obviously we'll have a big review coming out over that. And of course, mate, what else is coming up? Copenhagen Half Marathon. Rumors already that Jacobs might be doing it. I'm going to be there, commentating on it. So.
Are you on the bike, mate? Like, or are you on the lead car, or are you just in a studio?
Oh no, it's just in a sort of gantry, man. Watching. So yeah, I'm intrigued, and I guess people would have watched the race by the time they listened to this. But I was looking at Kip Lemos and Jacobs head to heads, and they've only raced each other twice. I couldn't believe it. Once as juniors at World Juniors in 2018, and Jakob was third. I think Kip Lemos was sixth, and then the next time they raced was in 3000 coming out of COVID, and Kip Limo won in 726 and Jakob was second in 727. So yeah, they haven't raced. And despite you always seeing them on the world stage, obviously Kip Limo's drifted to the 10.
Mm.
And the one time he did the double and did the 5 in the Olympics, Jakob didn't do the 5 in 2021. So yeah, they've somehow avoided each other, and yeah, the pacing is set to be 57 low.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I think that's what I want to see Jakob do, like post champs. Obviously, look, his times are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but I want to see him come out and do those sorts of races rather than just
Get beat
racing
by
on
the
the
goose.
1500. Yeah.
Give
So
Noose, give Nagoose the bloody satisfaction of beating him. No, 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 no. Yeah.
yeah,
Same here. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what he can run if he does do it. I'm not 100% convinced, but also I think we could see a world record on the cards if Kip Lima. I mean, he was what, 21 when he set that world record. He's 23 now, so Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to next week, especially when we sort of break down the events. But um, rumors, the Femke coming out and saying that she'd love to race Keely over 600. Obviously, we saw Mondo at Warholm. We haven't really spoke since then, and that was a great matchup and a kind of good head to head. But and I will say, Red Bull Puma, like they kind of smashed the marketing and the hype around this.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm that was okay. If more athletes start doing this, like, why do I care who wins at Keely v Bowl in a 600? I just want to
Well,
watch
also
Keely.
first and foremost, this is going to be an absolute massacre, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
Keely
think
wins
Keely would
easily.
destroy her,
Destroy her, of
and
course.
not even close.
But like, I'm just like, I just want to watch Keely race an 800 against proper
Mm.
opposition. Like, and Bowl, why don't you just continue to race the 400 hurdles? Like,
Yeah.
do we need to have these rogue of? I don't really like
I
them.
think it's different when these athletes are, don't get me wrong, obviously Femke and Keely, like right now in the world, they're huge, but they're not like, I remember when we used to have discussions about, I think like Farah and Bolt, for example, used to like joke about having a race
Yeah,
over a day.
or
And
Rudisha and Bolt
that,
or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, Radisha and Bolt, like they're the greatest of all time. So it's
yeah,
completely different.
yeah. Yeah, you're
Like,
just picking the best people in their event. Well, bowl's not even that. You know,
yeah,
the
that's,
conversation, if it was ever going to happen, should be Keely and McLaughlin, right? Um, but yeah, or like imagine a Thing Moo and Sidney McLaughlin in his 600. That would actually probably be more
yeah,
exciting because a Thing
yeah,
Moo actually has like serious 400 pedigree,
yeah, yeah.
like not
I agree.
far off of McLaughlin's 400 pedigree. So, but I've these races and stuff, people are saying it's just what the sports needs, these head to heads, and I'm just like, does it? I just want to watch
I guess
absolute
I think
the best in
maybe
their
I think
proper
sometimes this
events.
is where we're perhaps unfair because we love the sport anyway for all its faults. We're always we our favorite. Well, I speak for myself, but I think I'm speaking for you as well. Our favorite is literally just the Olympics in its normal format, just watching normal races. Whereas I guess that's the problem is not trying to appeal to fans who already love that. It's trying to appeal to new fans who don't care so much about just watching a bog standard 10K around a track,
I
you
think
know?
new fans would be confused. They'd be like, hold on a minute, why am I watching two guys run 10.3? Like,
Mm,
it's, and I think the cool thing about this matchup, by the way, was that Mondo is a field eventer. So it's like, what can a field eventer do in 100? And he showcased his like speed and his athleticism and kind of showcased how good he was, even as just a track runner and as a sprinter. And I was like, okay, that's quite cool. But when you're already taking track down, I mean, the 400 hurdles and 600, like, is it's quite similar and stuff. And I don't really think there's a wow factor. I just think
no,
this
I
sort of, I mean,
agree.
if MK wants to go and run a 600, just go do a 600 in a normal race against some, there's loads on the
Yeah, and Keely
circuit.
can do it if she wants to, you know.
Yeah,
But
you can race some
it's not a
158,
big show.
159
Yeah,
women.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, but again, it's probably money. I mean, on that side as well, Grand Slam seem to be announcing some new athletes as well. See Hocker and
More
Goosen.
Americans.
Yeah, you call it a
This is the
the
problem,
Mid
like,
American Track League, and the sprinters again are all
yeah,
American. Like, and
which is fine. Don't get me wrong. That's great for that nation. But yeah, I don't mean it's the world changing like format that they're kind of trying to market it as.
yeah, they might
And they'll be the
argue.
Grand Slam champions of the world, won't they? So
I guess the Americans as well, but people like that are probably going to be easier to market. But a lot of them as well have the same agent. And when you think about the prize money and stuff, like the agents are going to absolutely cash in when they sign like three, four, five athletes to the same meet. It's
yeah.
quite scary. So I think there's definitely a bit of that going on.
Oh, I get why they're doing it as well, though. Like, because don't get me like USA is a
Honestly,
great spectacle.
I don't know where they're
So
getting
why
the
not have
money.
more? You know?
It is scary how much money they're collecting to put that on. So, but yeah, so I mean, we'll kind of let you enjoy Hobbs because it's a long one actually, so we won't ramble too much. I mean, Fifth Ave went down, Curves 344. Originally when I saw it, I was like, that's insane. But he really played it down in his interview after. It was like, wind assisted, net downhill, straight road, like he quickly corrected the kind of media who were like, "Oh, that's amazing. You must be happy with that." And he was kind of like, "Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. Like that is a lot different to running a 3:28 on the track."
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and we always do this with miles, whether it's road, whether it's indoors, anything sub 350, everyone starts going absolutely crazy. And but yeah, like you're saying, and like Kerr said, compared to a sub 330, it's just way off it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. He acknowledged that.
And that's why we love Josh Kerr, so
that's why we love him. Yeah, shouted out and said, Diamond Leagues are just, a little bit boring as well. So, which Hobbs has something to say about that in response. I asked him, I was like, "Are you on the same boat?" And he completely disagreed. So, yeah, there we go. So I think that's it, mate. I mean, we'll be back next week with kind of a real big roundup of the year that's been, and obviously National Cross. Intrigued to see how that pans out, and what the course is like and everything like that. So, yeah.
yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy Hobbs, and we'll see you very soon.
Okay, Hobbs Kessler, welcome to the podcast. It is a pleasure to have such a stellar guest on, to be honest with you. But I think for the British listeners, it's probably best to start from the beginning, and where your running journey started, to be honest with you, because I don't think many know. I certainly don't.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Admittedly, I'm a listener of the show. I've listened to a few episodes, especially your Steve Cram episode. So that's what introduced me. So excited to be on. Yeah, I don't know too much about the British system, but in the U.S., people generally start running in either middle school or high school. So for me, the case was I started freshman year of high school running cross country, and it's correlated with your school. There are some clubs, but for the most part, everything is like through your high school, and it's a little. Some people get luckier than others, depending on how good of a team they have and how good of coaches they have, and if their high school provides good running around it. So I was lucky in all those regards to have a really good setup. I actually had four coaches. I had a different coach every year of high school for whatever reason, but they were all perfect for my development at the time. And like just joined cross country because my parents like recommended it to me, and they both ran in high school and college, and they're like who cares about the running? Just go, and like that. No one has more fun than the cross country team. So I kind of went to go hang out with the boys, and I ended up getting a lot more out of it. But that's what drew me in initially, was just going and hanging out. And
That's
yeah, it ended up being a great
cool,
group of
man.
guys. Yeah.
I mean, one of the questions I was going to say, would you be the Hobbs Kessler of today had you not have grown up, one, in that high school, but two, in that area, given you're on the doorstep of a stellar coach Ronnie?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like Ronnie kind of started taking over my junior year of high school, but I think there's other coaches that I got to give credit to. Like Takashi Gowd was my first coach in high school, and he was great. He's like the epitome of a high school cross country coach, just super passionate about the job, super good, and he really like did a lot of things to kind of foster team culture and just guys that like being around each other. So that's what drew me in. And then I had some other great coaches the next few years, but yeah, and then being able to be coached by Ronnie again, that was a huge privilege. So I was super lucky in terms of my development, and I was small till pretty late. So I as a freshman in high school at 14 years old or 15 years old, the fastest I ran was 4:54, 4:55. So nowadays you get those 15-year-olds running 4:05. I was 4:55, and I just developed a little bit later.
I think a
But
lot of people, yeah, a
yeah.
lot of people can relate to that, but you hit some crazy marks, the next couple of years. I'm not sure exactly how old you were, what senior year of high school or the year before, junior year of high school, when you're running sub 4 mile and stuff like that. So there must have been an 18-month period where, yeah, you've gone from that 4:54 guy down to like, you're knocking on the door of 4 minutes and below for the mile.
Yeah. I mean, it was yeah. I think I ran 4:54 15, and 3:57 at 17. So or sorry, 3:57 at 17. It was almost a full minute. So it was a crazy period of time. And I have a few things to thank for that. First of all, like we were talking about earlier, my dad ran into Ronnie at a bank at the bank and just asked him to help out with coaching me. And at the time, Ronnie wasn't really coaching anyone but Nick, so he just had some time on his hand and he took me under his wing. And another was I just hit puberty and just got kind of like older and stronger. So I just, going from like a little kid to a lot older and stronger just helps more than any training. And then also COVID happened during that time period. So once COVID happened, that's just what I decided to do, is just commit myself fully to running. I was sixth at the state meet as a junior in high school, and I was still like primarily focused on rock climbing. And I was sixth and second returner, and at least in the state of Michigan, like winning the high school cross country state title is like the peak of the sport in high school. Like everyone wants to be a cross country state champion, and it's something I never thought I would have the opportunity to do. So once I realized it was possible, I really went all in and just lived like a professional runner once COVID happened. So I just approached it. I had the guidance to do so, and then like the results reflected that.
It certainly opens the doors, man. Just quickly, do you think you revived Ronnie's coaching career a little bit? Because he, obviously Nick was winding down, and is it fair to say him as a coach was also kind of winding down, but you come along, and then of course, like, Mason Furlick, and then the very nice track club, and then, Bryce and stuff. Now the group, he seems to be, very much coaching professional athletes again at the highest level, and doesn't look to be stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take too much credit for anything Ronnie's done. He's had an amazing career that's a lot bigger than me, but I will say we had good timing with when we kind of ran into each other. He was looking kind of like bored and looking for people to coach, and recognized my talent when no one else really did. Like he started coaching me when my mile PR was 4:20, and he told me, he's like, "You're going to break 4 within a year, and I think you can be as good as Nick Willis. I think you can be as good as Kevin Sullivan and Alan Webb and a lot of other great milers he's coached." And at the time, you don't really believe it. You're like, you've only run 4:20. You're not even the best guy in the state. And he just had that belief and made me believe in myself. And yeah, it happened at a good time where like Nick was on his way out, and yeah, we were able to keep it going, and he had people to coach, because it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are if you're not working with any athletes. So it worked out really well for both of us, and it's been a really special relationship that I'm super grateful for. It's funny, like a little coincidence thing, like my dad running into him at the bank made such a big life difference for both of us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are powerful words. I mean, one thing I think which goes a little bit overlooked is during, when you first sort of joined this group, and people like us are, starting to see your name crop up, and especially people like Nick Willis are coming out and they're saying this guy's going to be great. That's a lot of pressure to deal with. You went back into that senior year of high school, being a superstar. And I don't know when you quite committed to NAU, but you'd almost commit to NAU around that time as well. And it was a lot of pressure. Like, what was that final year of high school like, being the guy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I wasn't really the guy until I broke 4. So like I went from a 4:20 guy to a sub-4 guy pretty much overnight, because just the way everything worked out, and kind of a lack of racing the previous year, it like allowed me to make a really big jump. And I didn't sign up to NAU as a particularly great, or like I didn't have a particularly great resume, but they signed me like on not a small scholarship, and kind of under like Nick kind of like vouched for me and said I was going to be good, and they listened. So I got an opportunity, but again, that was more of a result of my connections than my resume at the time. But it really switched once I broke 4 indoors and set the high school national record. Then like everyone, I was a lot more relevant in the running community. It literally switched with that race. So that was a really strange feeling. And like, I don't know if I'll ever, it was so euphoric. I don't know if I'll ever have anything that compares to it again in my life, but super special memory. But the rest of the year I was naive enough where I didn't really understand the context or gravity to anything. And I think that was a huge blessing. It's like I just did what Ryan told me and ran as hard as I could, and everything ended up working out. And then it's a little, once the pressure came, then the next couple of years, for sure. But during that period of time, I was just running, and I just felt like I was just getting better and better. And the goal of the season was to break 4, and I was able to do it my first race, and doing workouts like 60s felt just a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And then kind of as we moved into the spring, like the same effort it would take to run a 60, all of a sudden it was a 58 or a 57. I was like, oh, like I just keep getting fitter and fitter. It was an amazing feeling. And then running 334 outdoors was, which I know is small potatoes now compared to like Laros and Cam Myers, but at the time, like, was unreal. And yeah, it was just an incredible, like, it felt like everything I touched turned to gold.
It was
incredible time for me.
At the time. That was it was like the NCAA leading mark or something, wasn't it? Like equivalent to an NCAA record, maybe. At the time, like people like Hocker, I guess, were running that sort of speed. So it was crazy.
Yeah, and it was like I got lucky, to be completely honest. Like I was in the perfect setup race at the perfect time in the season. And I think about it a lot. Like I remember like I had to go take a shit like 5 minutes before the start of the race, and I always think how different my life would have been if I hadn't taken that shit before the race. If I would have run as good, because I bet I'd be going to NAU right now. If I had the log in me, but anyways.
This is the crazy thing. I mean, obviously, you know, that season kind of changed your life a little bit. And then do you remember those contract negotiations and having that decision with NAU? Because was there anyone in your corner who was telling you, do you know what, college is, you know, NAU is probably a better shout? Because, you know, how many people have turned pro after high school and it actually worked out? I mean, I know Drew Hunter's, you know, he runs to a good level, but you're now stepping up to a great level, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say everyone in my corner thought it was a good idea to go pro, including Coach Smith and Coach Cornfield at NAU. Also, it advised me to go pro at the time, which I was super fortunate to have. I think, like there were some uglier with Alan Webb and some other people. I know it's been uglier in the past, and I really feel like everyone involved had my best interests in mind. So that made it a lot easier. It was a really hard decision and probably one of the hardest I'll ever make in my life. But I had a lot of really good guidance, and there weren't conflicting, like I wasn't getting conflicting advice. I was hearing this. Everyone was telling me I should do it, and I was super lucky. Ronnie had a really good relationship, really good trusting relationship with Mark Wetmore, who's my agent. So that took a whole nother aspect out of it. Is like I already had someone who I really trusted, had someone they really trusted. So that made it really easy. And Mark and Global Athletics as a whole had like really took care of me and continues to take care of me. So that made it really a lot easier. And then the NIL stuff hadn't opened up yet. So that would have opened up a whole nother dimension. That would have been a huge headache. So I'm really happy with everything. Everything worked out. And it overall was pretty smooth, although the decision was hard and kind of cooked me for the rest of the season.
It's funny.
It would have been awesome to run at NAU, but
it's funny how decisions like that you carry, like you just mentioned there, you carried that through a whole season. You know, the weight of that decision. Were you constantly, obviously, you know, everyone in your corner was like, it makes sense to turn pro. I mean, I'm interested to hear the reasons for that, but were you constantly questioning it even once a decision was made, like throughout that year?
Well, I was pretty adamant I was going to go to NAU. I didn't really have much context to what going pro would mean. And Ronnie told me in December, he told me, like, I think you're going to go pro after this, just so you know. like in December, he goes, like, Hobbs, like, you're gonna probably break the national record and you're gonna go pro this year. And I was like, yeah. Let's one thing at a time. Let's break four. Like, still in fairy tale land, and that it. I don't know how he knew, but that's what ended up happening. And but I was adamant I was going to NAU all the way, even after I ran 334. Coach Smith came to my house and we sat down with him and my parents and Ronnie and really tried to figure out what to do. And I was like, I'm gonna go to run for you. I want to go to school. I want this experience. And he's like, and this is before I'd seen any numbers or offers or anything or spoken with an agent. I was like, no, I'm staying. And he's like, Hobbs, you're gonna go pro. It's just what's gonna happen. Trust me. Like, we're gonna find a way to have you involved with the team to try to like make it easier. So you're not kind of isolated as like the one 18-year-old among pros. And so once I did end up going pro, like, I lived in the dorms with the guys on the team and was able to run with them on their off days and made a lot of really close friendships. So I got a huge part of the experience of being on the team, and thanks to Coach Smith just being very gracious and he didn't have to do that. Like, he just gave me that opportunity, and that made it so much easier, just knowing I would still get the social aspect of it. And so I got a little bit of the best of both worlds. But yeah, I was adamant not going pro, and then once I started talking to everyone, they're like, and figuring out what the implications would be long term, it was obvious to go pro, but it wasn't something I was sat with. It was like, I don't know. It went from me like on a Monday saying I'm going to NAU to like Thursday, pen had touched the paper. So it was quick, but a really stressful. Like, laying in bed, like, oh man, like this could send my life down different directions. Which luckily for me, two very good directions, two very good opportunities, but still stressful, especially young.
No, and remind me how many sort of, I guess, seasons or years you had at NAU? Was it a full year you had there as just experienced that college?
Yeah. So it was just one semester, but
Okay, right.
it allowed me to like create friendships with all the guys and girls on the team, which I'm still super close with. So like that, and I basically live in Flagstaff most of the year, so those are a lot of my best friends. So without that, it's made it a lot easier.
Yeah. Do you feel you needed to get that out of your system just to kind of be a day one, I'm going to college. Yeah. All your friends are kind of doing the same thing all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just need to get that initial experience out your system? Because at the end of the day, you're an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, I think it probably provided good structure and a good transition. I'm super glad I did it, but it was like not as fun as I thought. It was like being with everyone was fun, but it was also hard. Like, all my friends got to be a part of this great thing that I wasn't a part of. So that was hard in a way. And that was just the nature of it. And it was my decision to not be a part of it, to be fair. But so that was hard. But once I kind of like established my own, I don't know what you call it, just like my own path or kind of my own way of doing things. And like, it wasn't related to the team, and just a full pro that had friends in the NCAA, it became a lot easier.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'll talk about the sort of transition post there, but I just want to know just briefly in that period, that super high school season you had, that transition as well. What was obviously Ronnie said to you in December you were going to go fast. Like, what was the training like? Because I don't think anyone from the outside, especially people like myself and following this sport, you didn't get this impression that Ronnie was like that mad scientist and he'd nurtured you for all these years and he was drilling you, like a sort of Jakub setup or a Galen Rupp setup when he was in high school.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone had those impressions. It was very laid back. And what made you so good at that age?
I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know if Ronnie does either. He just kind of has that intuitive sense, like this is going to work. My training was a lot very, very different than it is now. Like, it was pretty much all track work and racing. And I trained like a high schooler, and I think that's how high schoolers should train. Like, you don't need to be running 70, 80 miles a week and building a huge engine. Like, go run hard, go race. Running fast, I think at a young age is super important just to get your mechanics down and really develop that. There's a plenty of time to drill in the mileage and build the engine. So I'm happy with what it's taken, but it wasn't as calculated as a Yacker, Galen
Okay.
Rupp. It worked out well. And it had Nick and Mason. Like Ronnie like gets really excited sometimes, so they also were keeping an eye on things. But it worked. It just I got lucky and it worked out well. I and was
Mm.
able to stay healthy, and like one little niggle could have like totally set it off course. But Ronnie had that vision. I don't know how, but he did. So it ended up working out.
I think you make an interesting point that I don't know if many athletes stumble across this, but like, would you run 334 now, given the training? If you went back and did that high school season's training, do you think you'd get the same results, or do you think you'd be worse?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Mm.
It,
Because
it was definitely
obviously,
like a riskier type of training because you're in spikes a lot, and like
Mm.
I'd be like in spikes like 5 days a week between racing and sessions with Nick. It wasn't like if you go back and look at the training, it wasn't as calculated. I didn't approach it like how I would now, knowing what I know, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
But it obviously worked.
yeah,
Like like I think I'm lucky to be like kind of a hyper responder to training.
mm.
Just like that's one of the things I was born talented with. So like the training I did do, got me really fit. But also I ran 2 1500s and I ran 340 in the first one and then 334 in the second one. So I got pretty lucky with the setup there
Mm.
as well.
Yeah. That's a fair point because I was going to say I'm not sure how many like a lot of pros would latch on. I think you and Ronnie have been really smart here to have changed your training to obviously get the results you're getting now because I would have thought it would be easy to latch on to what you were doing because you were having
Hmm.
so much success. So at what point did you decide, hold on a minute, we need to change here?
Yeah. Well, like the first year was as a pro was really hard because I've had 2 years of getting better. Every workout was better than the last. It felt like I just got fitter and fitter and understood the sport better, understood training better, like more sophisticated. And eventually, like that's gonna come crashing down, and it did. So like it was basically a whole year of like, man, why can't I do what I did last year? And like, am I going to be able to live up to the expectations that people have for me and that I have for myself? And it was hard. And I was like we were trying to copy the training and do the same thing. I was doing the same workouts. I'm like, well, I did this workout faster than last year. Why am I not fitter? And it
Mhm.
just like kind of was a time filled with a lot of rookie mistakes that are probably necessary to make. It's like
Mm.
some of those things like people can tell you like all they want, like don't do it. You just kind of got to learn by yourself. So that the first year was getting those mistakes out of the way, and then uh, yeah, I just kind of like we just kind of started tweaking things. And Ronnie's he's in his 80s, so like I've also like had a lot of help from other people and other sources to try to like create uh, a system that works for me just through talking to people and trial and error and et cetera. And that's kind of what we landed on this year. And after a few transition years, and we're able to
Mm.
develop a system that we found really repeatable and it works really well. And I'm really excited to keep tinkering with it, but we got it pretty zeroed in. So it's just taking it, yeah.
Mm.
One we just started. I guess I don't know how to like. We started approaching it uh, more intentionally
Mm.
at the start of the fall of 2023. So a year ago now, like all right, like we're gonna do this as tight as possible and use every resource at our disposal, and we did, and uh, was able to be super consistent in training, do a ton of really good quick training, and the results followed. But it was a very like uh, intentional decision to switch things and
Mm.
really try to get it down well.
And in this day and age, especially, there's so much online, but also the circles you're in, like you spend a little bit of time at NAU and you've got your ear to the ground, like you're a smart
Hmm.
guy when it comes to the sport. There must have been a lot of training philosophies and a lot of noise and people telling you what to do that you kind of had to sift through to get
Hmm.
what's working for you now. How did you manage to kind of block all these suggestions out and kind of pick the right one?
Yeah, I mean, we we basically just went and my dad started helping. Um, this guy Pat Henner, who's a really experienced NCAA coach, started getting involved with the training. So, and then Jeff Burns, who's a exercise physiologist, a PhD, he ran for Ronnie at Michigan maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and he works for the Olympic Committee now. So between all of us, we like kind of put our heads together and reached out to a bunch of other people and just had them explain like what they thought worked, what didn't, why it worked, and just did what made the most sense, like using all kind of the collective knowledge and resources. But really, like the big switch was like being super intentional about everything. We kind of shift away from Ronnie's style of like Ronnie's very like about gut feeling, and while that certainly works, I just felt like at this point in my career I didn't want to leave anything up to a gut feeling, because like you could be a little hungry and your gut feeling is going to be a little different, right? So just make sure we have a reason for why we're doing everything, and history to back it up, and like we have a lot of connections with a lot of experience to like go over training and ask them questions, and then we just kind of compile all that, start experimenting, tinkering with stuff, kind of figuring out the cause and effect of certain types of training and how I can kind of figure out bottlenecks so I can get more volume in with less fatigue, et cetera. But really having a reason, being super intentional, having a reason for everything is what flipped it.
I think that's a pretty brave thing to do as an athlete, to go outside of your circle. I mean, how many athletes like you have that little setup, maybe 4 or 5 people involved in it and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to take stock and go around to a lot of people, ask a lot of people, communicate and get a lot of heads together, that's quite a brave and bold thing to do. I can't imagine many in the game do that. Maybe I'm naive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like, I don't know, just with Ronnie just kind of being on the tail end of his career, and it kind of opened up space to have more people into the conversation, and kind of, yeah, everyone put their heads together and try to figure out what works best and what makes the most sense. So it's just there's not that much like literature. There is some, right? But to like support training, right? Like there's only so many elites, and no one like, so like you really like, we just try to like do what makes the most sense, and really like think things through, and be yeah, like I said, intentional and thoughtful, and like that's at least for my current understanding, like the most effective way to create good training, at least in my situation, because I want to squeeze all the juice out of my talent and have the best career possible.
And
So,
I think what you've landed on now, from what I've heard, is pretty unique as well. Is it fair to say it's quite personal, to you, the training? It's very specific to, like you said, you've mentioned about these bottlenecks in the past. How can you maximize volume without getting fatigued and stuff like that? And you do, there's a few decisions there which, people would be like, well, what? That doesn't make any sense. Are you okay just to kind of break down some of those big changes and kind of how it looks?
Yeah, absolutely. Training's like my favorite topic. So, yeah, I mean, just the basic philosophy that we have right now, and we are going to make a few that we use this year, and we're going to make a few tweaks this year. So some things will change, but overall the structure and philosophy will be pretty similar. But it's very, so first of all, it's like trying to maximize the fatigue to stimulus ratio. So how can I get like reach the point of diminishing returns and stop? Like don't push past where training stops being effective. So how can I get the most for doing the little? That's the philosophy, and that's kind of led us to like it's very polarized. So we're do a lot of top end speed, like running mechanics, like and lifting and hard strides, lifting, really running fast but short. So fast and short, alactate, and then a ton of I guess it'd be more Norwegian style strength on the other end. So we kind of cover the top end and the bottom end, and then we found if you raise one side up and raise the other side up, it seems to raise everything in the middle. Obviously, there's going to be like a little slack in the rope in between. So you have to do some stuff to push the middle, but for the most part, if you get your speed and mechanics down and your engine down, aerobic engine, it seems to work for me at least. I was born with I'm pretty good at the anaerobic. Like I can do pretty good track work, not super fit. Like that's kind of my natural strong suit. So working on either end raises the middle. So I mean, we've adopted the double threshold, which is pretty common nowadays. And then the less common thing is doing like a lot of like 40 and 80-meter sprints, but every couple of weeks, I run hard twice a week, and every couple of weeks I'll do like a 40 as hard as possible. But most weeks I'm doing 40s, probably within 90% of my max effort. So really getting that, and I think that's really opened the doors for me in the 800. And then I work with the same strength coaches, Jake Whiteman, Andy Kay, and he's been incredible. A fellow Brit.
Yep.
But yeah, and so kind of on that strength and power side. And anyways, that's the basic philosophy, and then just trying to figure out how to do things, get the most with the least fatigue, and just figure out how to be as consistent as possible.
How did you know that it was trending the right way? Obviously, you went indoors. Indoors was pretty good, but I guess there must have been a little period you got a world medal, you ran fast in the mile and stuff like that. But there must have been a period, maybe November, December time where you're like, okay, is this? I'm maybe 3-4 months in now. Is it trending in the right way? What we're doing is it the best decision?
Yeah. I mean, we just kind of had to trust in our theories, right? And again, we had Pat Henner has coached in the NCAA for 30 years. He's seen a lot of athletes. Same as Ronnie. Ronnie, 50 years. And then with Jeff Burns, we have the science, right? So we're coming at it from a few different angles. We have like the science and then the experience. So like we should know, like with this basic school of thought, this should work. And it did. And like we had a deep enough understanding to know it would work. It's just like the degree, because like no matter what you do, like if you give your body stimulus, you're going to get better. But it's really trying to get the most out of it. So like we had already, I feel like, mastered like 80% of it, and then we're just trying to zero in to get the last 20.
So did you find doing too many, I guess, race specific workouts like you did when you were in high school? You were basically finding that this was just, you weren't getting much returns from them. You were just getting awfully fatigued and maybe nursing injuries and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That was a big epiphany that we had this year, or a big thing that changed, and we kind of pulled them out. And that being said, I do like a lactic session once a week, but I do it on the hills, and so I normally do a pretty hard session once a week, but on the hills. And we found with the hills, like not only does it have great benefits in terms of like running mechanics and leg strength and like all the benefits of running up the hill itself, but it also you can be metabolically at the same spot if you were to run hard on the track, but it comes at a much lower cost. Like you're never pounding, so your legs aren't pounding, you're not in spikes, you're pushing the whole way, so you kind of got to produce a lot more power. So we are hitting that energy system, but just not on the track really. But yeah, I felt like I was leaving a lot of my races in workouts, and that was a suggestion that Pat, he's like, let's back this off between the hills, the threshold, and the strides. Like you're so close. Like that's that last few percent is these track workouts. And so we just scaled it back. We obviously did a few, and then respecting the races themselves as really great race specific stimulus. Also like, but I think it's allowed. Like I really believe in that that way of doing things, because I feel like it's really allowed for consistent racing. I guess at Fifth Ave I felt a little flat, but other than that, like I felt great in every race all year. Just because I feel like I had I had the juice. Like I hadn't left it in practice, which I was doing before.
Mm. Where do other, training partners fit in to this model? We obviously Bryce, training with you. You two have had an incredible year. He too has
Hmm.
had a great year. Where do other people, is it quite a lot of stuff you do on your own now? Obviously I know Mason's still training and stuff, but you're spending a bit of time in flag. Where do other people fit in this sort of regime?
Yeah. So I mean, Bryce is my main training partner, but he. So at first it was like in up fall and winter, we were on a very similar setup. He just I double every day, and so he just run once a day. He just literally just did 50% of my training, and then some more lifting and more 800 specific stuff, and then so I would train with him, and then uh, once we got into the season, he kind of started doing more stuff that was more specific to him, and we kind of veered off on our separate paths. But yeah, I overlap a lot with a lot of people, but currently I'm the only one on my system. I would love to see more people on it because I'd
Mm,
be really curious if it works um,
mm.
universally, if it's just something that has worked really well for me. Uh, I think there's a lot of really good examples of amazing athletes that have really figured out training for them, and you try to apply it to someone else, and it just doesn't seem to click. Like I'm thinking like Bernard Lagat, like it didn't seem like his training worked particularly well for anyone else, uh, or I don't know. I'm sure there's other examples, but
Mm.
you know what I mean. Like, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's specific to me. So that's something I'd love to learn in the future.
It's
But
interesting. I definitely feel like your upbringing when you speak about doing a lot of intense track sessions as a kid, that's quite similar to what we do in the UK. We race a ton,
mhm,
we drill everything, and we go down the track 3 times a week and we run our socks
mhm.
off. And so I wonder having that kind of core foundation there has allowed you to go a lot more polarized now. And if someone hadn't had
Yeah,
that, maybe they
that's
wouldn't
a
run the
great point.
polarized method. Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a natural responder to that sort of work too. So I feel like it doesn't. That's not the limiting factor for me. Like I can kind of max out that area of fitness relatively quickly within a few workouts, right?
Yeah.
Um, but like I can, the engine can forever like that will forever be the limiting factor, and
Mm.
then the faster I can get in leg speed, the more efficient I can get, and
Mm.
that serves as a lot. So yeah, the polarized training that's a good point. I would be inclined though to think, at least in my experience, I know people have run incredibly well off that system,
Mm.
but I just feel like that you max out on that area of fitness pretty quickly, and then
You
you kind
do.
of reach a point where it just kind of like it just fatigues you and doesn't you hit
Mm.
the ceiling, you're just hitting your head in the ceiling.
You do. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, let's get to what people. I mean, I'm sure they loved the discussion so far, but the season of 2024 because it got off to. I mean, indoors, you were looking pretty good. I mean, that world title was up for grabs. Really, it could have been any one of you that day, but then outdoors it starts to click. I think a good place to start. Obviously, you fell at pre, but
Hmm.
yeah, maybe a good place to start would be US champs because it's always fierce. I think Brits always look at it in envy, and it's it's almost like Diamond League status, the US champs.
Hmm.
But doing that 8 and 15 double, I think, and being one of the few guys in the world in the last 10 years who are probably capable of doing that. Like we just haven't seen people attempt this double. Even though they've been good
Hmm.
800 runners, like Whiteman's got a good 8 on him, but no one's actually had the balls to attempt it. When did those discussions start? And did you think the Euro champs would pan out like they did?
I didn't. I wasn't even sure if I was gonna like the 8 felt like a backup plan for the 15. For like a little context, like ever since I signed with Adidas and decided to go pro, everything pointed towards this year. Like that, I feel like was the check-in that my trajectory was on the right path. Um, so making the team, which turned out to be a lot harder to make than I thought it would. Just look at the draw. It was a crazy time to be an American miler.
Mm,
But that making that 15 team had huge significance to me, and that was the main goal, and that's how the way the training was oriented is to run a good 15 and everything. And then I ran an 8 in mid-May off of like just hills and a single track workout. And I didn't reduce my volume. I was still on pretty heavy legs. And I wasn't put in the A heat, which is disappointing, but I won the B heat in 145 low, which was a huge breakthrough for me. And I was like, I was expecting to be happy with 147 because I'm sure a lot of milers can attest to this. Like you're coming off road legs, like the 800 can be tricky. Like you kind of need to be on fresh legs. So to run 145 low off of threshold training hills and on some tired legs, I was like, we have a really big opportunity here. But I was more looking at it as like, all right, I'm really ready for pre-classic and I'm in a really good spot with my 15. And I was super lucky at US champs to have the 15 first. So my primary event, my baby was first. So I got that out of the way, made the team, had to fight for it. The amazing 1500 squad in the US between Cole and Yard, obviously, but it goes a lot deeper. Like Vinciati was right behind me. Nathan Green was right behind me after a long NCAA season. The list goes on. So super happy to make that team. Huge weight off my shoulders. I feel like my potential is starting to be realized. And I looked at that race my whole time as a pro. That race got me out the door. And then I was given 2 days to rest and went out that night and hang out with my buddies and wasn't even sure if I was going to run the 8. And my dad was like, Hobbs, you got to run the 8. Like, and with rest, I was able to get a good session in, just kind of, I did like a small threshold session in between, just kind of flush the legs out and body was feeling fine. So made it to the first round smooth. And then the second round is really cutthroat. Only 2 get through. So I was ready, expecting to go as hard as I possibly could. And the race worked out really well. Brandon Miller pushed the pace from 300 out, and I just kind of stuck on him. And we both ran 143. And at that point, the expectation was to make the team. So, and then, yeah, finals went smooth, and I was able to be on both, but it was a huge shock and huge surprise. There like Pat Henner and some other people had talked to me saying you're going to probably run 143 this season. Again, similar to like early in high school, I didn't see the vision, but they were 100% right. And it was super cool. I don't know. I love running the 800 and I love racing a lot. So it was a great opportunity to race a lot, low pressure. It was, the 15 was so stressful. It was just fun to go run the 8 and just, it was super incredible. And at the Olympics, the schedule was a lot tighter. So it was harder to do well in the 8, especially the 15 rounds were a lot harder as well.
And the final, didn't you, in the Olympics, I think you ran the 15 final, next morning, 800 heat.
Yeah, that was particularly brutal. Yeah, I think we ran at 9 p.m. Tuesday night, and then 11 a.m. the previous or the next morning. So I don't know what that is, like 14 hours in between, caffeinated, a sub 330 in the legs, one of the biggest races of my life, and just like I think I probably set the record for our fastest time between running the Olympic final and being in bed. I only slept a few hours and barely snuck through the heat, but that cooked me. I didn't have any, like, I thought if I could just get through that, I would have a whole day to rest, avoid the repetrage, and that would be fine to really have a good crack at the to making the final. But I think it just cooked my nervous system doing both those on no sleep, and it wasn't able to get recovered in time to put in a good effort, but still super grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah. I know the 800, I mean, yeah, we see Jakob do the 15 and the 5. It's just, he had a similar turnaround, but yeah, the 5 is a real jog fest. The 800, you got to be, especially if you're a 15 guy stepping down, you got to be so on it. And
you got to get off the line and be so warm. Yeah, like it wasn't easy.
Yeah, what those kind of pre-race strides where you're just going, goodness me, off of a few hours sleep. Is that something that you want to kind of make yours, you want to do again next year at Worlds? Are you going to try and double, or did you kind of recognize that it was difficult. Maybe I can get more out of my season if I just do the 15. But I guess with champs being at the end of the year, it might not
Mhm.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, I like racing. So uh,
Mm.
if the schedule allows for it, I'll do it. That being said, I don't know. I think I was probably this year. I was probably, if you look at like when I was at my strongest, I think I was in probably 13:05 shape. Um, I mean, who knows? And like that strength got me down to 329, and I just didn't have the strength to hang on to Cole and Yard and Josh and Jakob at the end there. Like their last 100 in the Olympic final was 13:0, mine was 14:0. And
Mm.
so I think to get from the 329 to 327 to be in medal contention, I need to get down to the 12:55, which is crazy. You get to run 327, you got to be able to run 12:55 and 1:43. But that's how good all these people are, Cole and Josh and Yart. Like they're all capable of it. So I I don't know if the pursuit of trying to get stronger will make my 800 suffer or not.
Right.
Like the speed development system we've been using, I think is really good at preventing like your speed and efficiency from atrophying
Mm.
while you're doing a lot of volume. But still, that's something we're going to find out this year. If I'm kind of willing to sacrifice the 8 to be able to
Mm.
run a really good 15 because I think I need that other end.
Mm.
But we'll see. I'd love to do it. I'd love to run a good 5 as well. I don't want to be like a 15.8. I just want to be in my view, I'm just a good miler, and good milers can do everything. They can run a good 5. They can run a good 8.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. Again, I like the 800. You watch someone like Bryce train, and it's apparent to me how special the top, like a 141 guy, is compared to a
Right.
143 guy.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
like they're so powerful and fast, and we'll see. I don't know is the answer,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna like this year. The volume we have to step things up just a little bit to try to get from 5th place into medal contention next year.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, with the 800 being where it is right now, that 2 seconds is a big 2 seconds. I mean,
Yeah,
you do enjoy racing. You've been on the Diamond League circuit a little more recently as well. Kerr came out and just after Fifth Ave, actually, you might have seen it or not, saying how Diamond Leagues they're just a bit boring. He wants to race. Are you with him on that?
what do you? No, I don't know what is like a diamond league is a race. First one to the finish line wins. And the
True.
way that like all and I love Josh. I don't want to say anything bad about him, but all of the all his global medals and all the recent global championships
Mm.
are run in diamond league style.
Yeah.
He Everyone's just lucky enough to have a rabbit
Yeah.
pulling it through. So um, I don't think they're boring at all. It's just a different type of challenge. Um,
Mm. Yeah. That's
yeah,
a
no
fair
one,
point.
no one will be as fit as Jakob at that. Jakob is going to be the best at that. That's just
Mm.
no one has the time. Like he just has to jump on everyone. Like when you run 70 miles a week at age 12 or whatever he ran, like your
Mm.
engine is just going to be bigger. Um,
Mm.
so that is a bit annoying, and it's annoying that he goes to the front every time, and it kind of plays out similarly. But at the end of the day, it's still fun and it's still racing, and a great opportunity to, um,
Mm.
I don't know, show your talents, run. Yeah, I don't really know what he's on about. I think like
Mm.
I don't know what he'd prefer, but that's just the way they're set up, and it
Yeah.
kind of it goes how it goes, and it has its pros and cons. I personally like those races because it just kind of it's he says they're boring, but I think they're mentally very a very like fun challenge because you have to stay. It's hard far out. You go through 150 or 151 in a 1500. I don't care who you are. It's going to be hard, and you're going to have to really focus and stay present. And a lot can happen in the last 300.
Mm.
Especially as people close the gap to Jakob. Um, we'll see in the previous years if people will catch up in terms of fitness. I mean, I think he'll always have the edge,
Mm.
like I said earlier. But if he's doing the work the last 600 meters and everyone lines up behind him, like that's what happened. That's what's happened at the last 3 global championships. So maybe that's enough to make it a little more entertaining. So it's not just monopolized by one guy. But
Well, you're one of the youngest. I mean, I know Laris and you got Myers and stuff, coming through, but 21 years of age, Hocker and Jakob, they're both 23, are they?
mhm.
So it's a very exciting time for you. Do you think, talking of these races, do you think they're going to change anytime soon? Like, do you think there will be a more tactical element coming to the 1500 over the next few years, or do you honestly, Jakob just, can consistently do what he's doing, and if not him, will someone else step up at some point?
Yeah, I mean, like the Kenyans don't seem as bold as they used to be. So I feel like they used to be the culprits. I mean, Tim Chariot taking it in 2019 in Tokyo, right? And then Jakob has taken the pace from far out the last three global championships. It's only worked once in 2019 because no one knew it was coming, right? So their front running tactic is not proving particularly successful in the 15. So I don't know if given the history we have, like people have with it, if people keep doing it. I mean, if I were Jakob, I would be moving up to the 5 and 10. He's a great 1500 meter runner, one of the best ever, but he's vulnerable, and like that's been shown. He's lost the last 4 global 1500 meter championships. But I mean, in the 5, he's untouchable. No one's as quick as him, and no one's as fit as him. So I'd be moving up, and then if Jakob's not in it, who's pushing the pace? Yard will sometimes, but he can also close. Like he's got a lot of tools as well. So without like a serial, and Tim Chariot's at the end of his career and doesn't seem to have the same confidence he used to. Without a serial pace pusher, who knows if they'll resort back to it. I think what's more likely to happen is if Jakob steps up, which I don't know if he's interested in or not, or steps away from the 15, but like it's always going to go through like 157 or 158. Like it's going to go through reasonably fast, maybe not 151, but then we're going to come home in 147, 146, like to run or whatever it may be. I don't know the exact numbers, but we'll run 330 closing at 52, something like that, so it'll kind of be a mesh between them if people decide not to take it from the gun.
It's gonna be fascinating to see how the next few years in the 15 play out for sure. I think just quickly before we finish up, I want to just talk about your experience as an American in Paris, because we've spoken to a few Brits who went out there, but I know, from listening to a few things, reading a few articles, America they go big. Talk about your area in the village, but then you guys also had like a high performance center, and just give me a little bit of an idea of kind of what your Olympic experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, Team USA was the most successful in Paris, like period, but especially in track and field. In every running event, we medaled, except for the 800, or at least for the men, except for the 800, which Bryce was 4th in 141. And that speaks to the system we have, like as far as training and stuff. But also, like, Team USA, the Olympic Committee, took care of everything to make sure the athletes were set up to compete at their best. So the village did not have AC in Paris in the summer. It's super hot. Every dorm room in the Team USA building had AC in it. It was freezing there. So every room had a personal one. The beds were super uncomfortable. Like Team USA bought mattress toppers for everyone who wanted them to make the beds more comfortable. The food wasn't particularly good, and training, we had this high performance center with their own cafeteria. Every piece of facility we need. So indoor track, outdoor track, pool, weight room, treadmills, you name it, they had it. And then on top of that, a super, super good physio staff. So across the board, they took care of everything at a super high level. And the results showed it. So they took super good care of their athletes, and everyone performed. It's the hardest team to make in the world, but it's also once you're on it, they take amazing care of you. So I can't thank them enough. Sucks to be a Brit, I guess, but
sucks to be any other nation, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess that does give you, you've got that extra edge, haven't you? When you've got that at your disposal, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah.
But, you were someone who was in the village. Like, how long were you in the village for? Because obviously, yeah, you competed in the 15. That was early on, all the way right through to the 800. Did you go to both opening ceremonies? Or?
No, so I stayed up in San Moritz at altitude till like 2 or 3 days before the first
Right.
round of 15. So I dropped right down, and then
Mm.
I got out of there as soon as possible. But I did go to the closing ceremonies. It was super cool. But the village was nice, but it wasn't like it was good enough. It wasn't like
Mm.
the most comfortable, but obviously people had amazing performances. Sleep in the village, so can't complain too much. But
I always think
I
that,
did, yeah.
as athletes, like you're on the circuit, like compared to when you go to a diamond league and you're prepping for like a pre-classic or something, or
Yeah,
in Monaco, the experience must have been very different, and one that you're not you only experience every 4 years.
yeah. I mean, it like the scale of it was incredible. As far as like a comfort and luxury thing, I would say like going to like a diamond league is the food's better, and like you're in a hotel and not a cardboard bed, so it's a little more comfortable. But at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to really matter.
Yeah. Okay, man. Awesome. I mean, you've had a great year. Before we finish, what's next for you? Going into next year, what's next?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take a few weeks down. We found that like I've taken time off and I haven't, and just allow myself to get as out of shape as possible.
Mm,
I just respond once I start training again. I respond better. So
mm,
just a hard reset. So um, I'm gonna take as much time as I can without going crazy. So at least 10 days completely off of running, and then if I can go more, I will. But if I'm really chomping at the bit, I'll start up again.
mm.
And then the pursuit of 327 shape starts. So that's what it'll take to get a medal, maybe even more. So
Mm.
we'll start planning and start training. So I'm really excited for it. We've first year using this system we've kind of developed was a huge success. So we can keep tinkering with it, try to get even better, let it compound on itself year after year. But yeah, just back to work. I can't wait to get training again.
Fantastic. And will there be indoors? Have you spoke about that? I guess there's no walls and stuff. Will you attack indoors
Yeah,
still? That seems to work.
we'll see. I like racing, so
Mm.
and I think racing makes you really really good at running and really fit. So whatever makes the most sense. But I'm not going to try to hide away for too long. I'd like to race a bunch.
Mm.
That's why we do it. So
Mm.
we'll see. I haven't thought about it at all. I'm only on day 2 of my break, but
Yeah,
hopefully next year
that's the
there'll
right
be
way to do
a lot of racing.
it.
So don't know where, don't know when, but hopefully it'll
Yeah,
be good.
good stuff, man. Well, look, thanks for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, absolutely. Thanks for having me.